Darkness kills, destroys the will. Find a spark, make hearts thrill. Hear the tales of time so grim. Shine a light, don't let it dim. Heather Brown downtown, bound. True crime story she's found. In the shadows, secret stay. Need a light that finds the way.
Welcome back to another exciting episode of Defeating the Darkness. True crime stories with Downtown Heather Brown. That's me, your host. I'm a former homicide and sexual assault prosecutor here in Orange County, California. And today, oh my goodness, hold on to your seats. You're in for a juicy one. In honor of Veterans Day, because you know we love our veterans, especially here in the Brown household, we have with us, I'm honored to have with us today, the Honorable Judge Richard King, who's not just a judge, but a war hero, in my opinion. So you can be as humble as you want to be, but I'm saying it right now for the record. He's a hero. And he was in Vietnam, and he is here and to tell us a story that I heard when I attended a bar association event. So normally, Judge King, I know you probably don't listen to my podcast because you're very busy being a judge. I understand. But I usually start with my guests and say how we met. And occasionally I've met some of my guests in a bar. So we did not meet in a bar, you and I. But the bar was involved because I'm an attorney and you're a judge. And I have appeared in front of you on a couple cases over my career of 24 years. However, that's not what I have you on the show tonight to talk about. Tonight, I want our listeners to hear the story that I heard you tell at an Orange County Bar Association event. And I was fascinated when I heard your story. And it was a story about you as a young man and going into the Vietnam War and everything that transpired. And I was very taken aback at how interesting you were. But because, when I've been in front of you, you're a judge and you are ruling on cases and stuff. So we never had such, I'd never heard your story, your backstory. And I was fascinated and interested, and I want our listeners to hear it. So I was honored when you accepted my invitation to come on and tell the listeners about your story. So,
well, I want to thank you for having me here. It's a real honor, and we're getting close to Veterans Day, and it means a lot that I'm able at this time in my life to be able to share with people about my service in Vietnam. As we will get going, people didn't appear to be too interested in that when we came back.
When you came back from the war.
That's right.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that too. That's another tidbit I thought was very interesting that I did not know. So I'm going to kind of play ignorant here when we're doing this episode. But I want you to take our listeners through, just so they can get a little sense of who you were, even, before we get to the war, obviously. You're a young man. You grew up where?
I was born in Cleveland, Ohio. My father was a World War II veteran. My mother and my father met in Cleveland when my father was discharged from World War II. My mother was 15 at the time of Pearl Harbor.
Oh, wow.
And when she turned 16, and this was common throughout the nation, young women quit school and they went to work for the war effort, and that's what my mom did. And so she met my dad, they got married, and yours truly is the beginning of the baby boom that we have come to know. My father got into the heavy construction business, which somewhat segued me into a branch of the service that we'll talk about called the Seabees. We moved around a lot. I lived in Cleveland until I was 3. I have really no memory of that. But we moved to Louisville, Kentucky until I was about 6 or 7. Then we moved to a place called Glasgow, Kentucky and I was there for a year or 2 years. Then we moved to New Albany, Indiana, which is the border between Indiana and Kentucky, and we were there for, I think, 3 or 4 years. We moved back to Cleveland.
Oh, wow.
And I was there for about 4 or 5 years or 6 years. I can't really recall the precise math. Then we moved to Charleston, West Virginia. Then we moved to Indianapolis, Indiana. And then we moved to Belleville, Illinois, which is right across the Mississippi River from St. Louis.
Wow.
And that's where I went my last 2 years of high school. And then when I graduated in 1965, I was facing the draft and had to make some people would say career choices at that time. But that's my background.
So let me ask you this. When you're, young and you're being moved around all the time, obviously it's because your dad's being stationed at different bases.
Well, he was not, if I may,
Oh, he was in World War II, so he was a veteran, and now he's a heavy machine operator.
Well, no, he's selling heavy equipment.
Okay.
And so that has its own little story, if I may.
Yeah, no, that's what we're here for, to hear the stories.
Sure. He sold heavy equipment. He sold bulldozers, scrapers. And during the 50s and the 60s, the interstate highway system as we know it was being developed at a very rapid clip. We literally moved from one section of the interstate to the next section as it was being constructed.
That was going to be my question. Like, why are you moving so much if he's not in the military?
Well,
I
that's
see.
why I was moving.
Was that hard for you as a
It was
kid?
very difficult. It was very difficult.
Because you're uprooted from any friends that you make, and then did you have brothers and sisters?
I had 3 younger sisters, and it was very difficult. Friends, as you get older, friends are as important as people. You get to choose them, and to be uprooted and then to start all over again was, as a young boy, I remember one time moving back to Cleveland, and it was like the 4th grade, and it was in the middle of the school year, and being brought into the class and sitting down at a seat, and everybody's looking at you, and
meet the new kid, the new boy Ricky.
Yeah, little Ricky King.
Did they call you Ricky?
Oh yes, my beautiful wife still calls me that. But that was my name. That was my name. So that's my story, pretty much.
Was your mom having to get a new job every time you moved somewhere new?
No, my mom was pretty much a stay-at-home mom, except we had my father abandoned us on occasion. The one that I remember is when I was in the 8th grade. And if I can just go back to, my mom and her generation, she was taken, her mom basically told her, get out of school because you got to go where the money is to help support our family. And so I know there's been a lot written about the baby boom, but perhaps the Reader's Digest version is the men came back, the men got the jobs, the women did not go back to school, the baby boom started, and my mom really had an 11th grade education. So when our father left and I was in the 8th grade, my mom had to become a cocktail waitress at a bowling alley, and we had to move into what was called the projects. That's the term that is used in some cities for government-assisted housing. So that's my story up until the time I went into the service.
Okay, now tell us about the decision to go into the service. You said that the draft was coming, the Vietnam War had started. What year did that start?
Well, the Vietnam War actually started in 1959 with our first casualty, but the actual buildup started around the time that I graduated from high school. I was not motivated in high school. I want to put that right out on the table. Studying and doing homework just didn't excite me. If I know you attended that program, I put it up on the screen. I graduated from the largest high school south of Chicago in Illinois. There was about 900. I graduated about 100th from or 120 from the bottom of my class.
Wow. And look at you now.
Well,
Right? I mean,
sure.
you've been a judge for how many years now?
25.
25 years. And you were a DA before you were a judge.
I was a DA. I was a prosecutor for 20 years.
For 20 years.
For 20
And then a
years.
judge for 25 years.
Right.
Look at that. And he graduated bottom of the class from high school. You can do anything, right? Not anything, but close to anything.
And I'll say this, that's America.
Right?
That's America. And
So we
so
gotta
when
hear
I
the
was,
story.
I'm sorry, but so when I was in high school, my father, who came back into our lives, he was selling heavy equipment, and he got me in the Operating Engineers Union, a local chapter out of where we were living. And I started as an apprentice in operating heavy equipment.
Wow.
So,
Was it fun?
it was fun, but economics were unbelievable. Now you have to understand, I was 18 years old. I had a 56 Ford, smoking cigarettes. Everything to me was driving my 56 Ford, dancing, drinking underage, and I was living at home, and I was making $4.40 an hour in 1965 money, and I didn't have to pay rent.
That's a lot of
I was
money.
having a very good time.
Sounds like it. Sounds like you were a hooligan.
Well, I'll leave that to your opinion. But anyway, what happened is that we knew the draft was coming. You had an opportunity to be deferred. They call it a student deferment.
Where you don't have to go to the war, to
If
the
you're
military.
in college, you are deferred from the draft. And that is something that did not exist in World War II. So in Vietnam, there was about 27 million individuals, young men, women were not part of the draft at that time, that were eligible for the draft, 27 million. And the number of people who went to Vietnam was, I believe, 2.7 million. So keep that in perspective.
Yeah.
Most of the people who were of age did not get drafted. They did not get drafted. So I had signed up for a junior college, but I never went to class. And it became apparent to me that my number was coming up. And so I was with my good friend, Wayne Ballard, who I still keep in contact with. We hung out a lot together. And we were actually in a trailer drinking beer, underage. And I was thinking about going into the Marine Corps, but then he said, let's go into the Navy together under the buddy system. And as I look back, that entire decision that I made, which I said yes, I don't think I spent more than 5 seconds thinking about it. And we agreed. The next day, we went down to the recruiter, and 7 days later, we're on a train to go to boot camp to Great Lakes, Illinois.
Isn't it crazy how, that decision sounds like it happened in like 10, 15 seconds, drinking beer with your buddy in a trailer. You're like, hey, Marines, now let's go to the Navy, right? Like, let's go sign up, right? If my son made that decision in 15 seconds, I'd strangle him, right?
Well, it's interesting you bring that out, because I remember telling my mom.
Yeah, how'd she take that?
It was tough. It was just really tough for her. As I look back, my mom was 20 years old when she had me. And when I decided to leave and to go into the service, she was 38 years old. And I'd been in her life for 18 years. And I didn't understand it. I didn't understand, as I do now, what she possibly could be going through because of her oldest, a son, potentially going off in war.
Yeah.
So
and there's a war going on at this point. It's not like me, because I'm thinking back, like our oldest son, Matt, is in the Marines and has been for many years. And when he told me, like he went through ROTC and then OSC and OCS, I mean, and then, but there was no active war happening then. So I wasn't sad about it. I was like, I think that's very honorable, but I wasn't worried that he was possibly not going to come home. And that's a whole different ballgame.
Well, the day that I was to report to the induction center to take the oath to defend the Constitution that we all have taken as a prosecutor, as a judge, as a lawyer. And I don't even remember that oath, but I just know I raised my right hand and I said yes. But my mom took the day off of work. She had got a job at a paper company in St. Louis. And she had to work. I mean, our economics were such that, she had to work, but she took the day off. And I remember that morning, she says, "I'm going with you." And I said, "What?" I said, "My mom's going to go with me to go to the induction center. I'm not going to have anything to do with that." I mean, can you imagine that and how that must have made her feel? But I was just oblivious to that. So I had a good friend that came by, and he was to drive us to the induction center in my 56 Ford. And his name was Larry Cook. I'll never forget. And so it came time to leave, and I told my mom, "You're not coming."
Oh,
and
broke her heart.
My mom got in the back seat and wouldn't get out.
Good for her.
Would not get out. Well, I was smart enough then to know that you got to be there, because if you're not there, that could be a crime. And so my good buddy Wayne got in the back seat with her and hugged her as we drove to the induction center. Aww. And I really have that memory. That memory is forever etched in my mind. And I wish my mom has left us. My mom passed away the day after her 49th birthday.
Oh,
and she's been gone for a while. But I always wish that I could have told her and apologized to her for being just a jerk that day, because I can't even comprehend, now having children, what kind of emotions that must have been for her.
I'm sure it was rough, but I do think you should give yourself some grace, because you were 18. And I'm confident that a part of that bravado, or arguably, coldness towards your mom, you had to man up and go fight for our country. And you might possibly go to war and not come back. So your 18-year-old brain was processing that too at the same time. So give yourself a little bit of grace. I'm sure your mom forgave you the second after it happened.
So got on the train, went to boot camp.
How was boot camp?
Oh, boot camp was so cold.
Is it like they see on TV?
Oh, it's just
all up in your grill, breaking you down and make you a man?
It was.
It was like that.
It was like that.
Do they like spit in your face when they're yelling at you and stuff?
It was everything like that.
And then some?
And then some. So I got out of boot camp, and I actually had orders to get on a ship that I went, and I was on a ship for about 6 months. It went nowhere. It was in Norfolk, Virginia. It was... so
you just went on the ship that was docked in the harbor?
Well, it was what we call
ocean?
A destroyer tender, and it was a big ship. It was big. It had about 1,000 people on it, and destroyers would come in from the sea, and the destroyer tender would tend to the destroyers.
Gotcha.
And they would supply rockets, missiles, repair the destroyers. And I was basically the word swabby. Mm-hmm. I swabbed the deck.
Really?
That was my main focus. That was my main job. And around that time, because of my construction experience, I volunteered for the Seabees. And
what are the Seabees? Tell our listeners what the Seabees is.
Seabees are a branch of the Navy that is titled the Naval Construction Forces. The short version is they do construction in combat. They do construction in combat. The most famous Seabee of them all was a person who was not a Seabee, and it was John Wayne, and the name of the movie is The Fighting Seabees. And the Seabees originated in 1942 because of the need to do the construction of airports, runways in the South Pacific, construction in the European theater. So they were formed. And what was interesting about them is that they were older individuals because they had construction experience.
Oh. So when you're saying Seabees, I just want to stop for a second before you get in that. Are you saying the letter C, letter B, or are you saying C as in SEABEE, like stingy bee?
The emblem of a Seabee, I'll get to in a moment.
Okay.
But Seabee means the Seabees are in battalions. They're not like in ships. They're battalions. So they're organized in military way, like the Marines, the armies. Okay, so you have regiments. Regiments are composed of battalions. Battalions are composed of companies. Companies are composed of platoons, and platoons are composed of squads, and squads are composed of fire teams. All right? So
Okay.
the Seabees, even though they're part of the Navy, really are organized like a military unit, like the Army. So Seabee comes from construction battalion. All right, but you're probably asking yourself, well, what's this Seabees? And I think my take on it is some government worker with a lot of time on their hands took sea, but it's part of the Navy, and sea, where the ships are, they're like on the water, that's the sea.
Right.
And then B, which is battalion, but Seabees are workers, so worker bees. And so an emblem, a logo was developed of a bumblebee with a sailor hat on top of the head, with a machine gun in one of the 6 arms, a crescent wrench in the other, and the name Seabees.
Wow. So that's a crazy little emblem for like those that are out in combat, right? The construction battalion is a little bumblebee. I love that though.
But if you talk to a Marine, they'll tell you that, the Navy is the Navy, except for 2 branches of the Navy. One, the corpsmen, because the corpsmen are with them in battle to take care, obviously, to care for the wounded. And the other, the Seabees, because we make their huts, we do things for them. And so the Marines
What about the
know
SEALs?
of us. What?
What about the SEALs?
The SEALs, true.
Okay.
True. All right.
The 3 of those.
Okay.
All right. We should ask Tom Brown, Captain Tom Brown, see what he thinks. Or Matt Brown. Anyway. Okay. So
that's how I got in. And once I got assigned to the Seabees, they sent me to Davisville, Rhode Island. And at the time of the Vietnam War, the Seabees had three main stations in the United States. On the eastern shore, they had Davisville, Rhode Island, which was about 40 minutes outside of Providence. It's the only water port for Rhode Island. That's what I've heard. Then in the south, they had Gulfport, Mississippi. And then in the west was Port Hueneme, which is next to Oxnard. So they sent me to basically Seabee School, and I got there in October of 1966. And I was there until March of 1967. And just like Great Lakes, which was really cold when I went to boot camp, a Davisville, Rhode Island in the wintertime was really, really cold as well. But then you get your orders, and you're either going to stay in Davisville, Rhode Island, you're going to go to Gulfport, Mississippi, or you're going to go to California. And a pivotal, I say, in my life happened. And I got orders to go to Port Hueneme. And I went home to see my mom and my 3 sisters. I have 3 younger sisters at the time.
Where was Dad at this point?
Dad was in and out. He was around. Okay. But so I went home on leave to spend time. And I'll never forget, I left St. Louis. It was like 10 degrees below zero. I mean, it was cold. Maybe it was 10 degrees above zero. It was just cold. I had my Navy jumper, the Navy pants, 100% wool, with the pea coat, 100% wool, gloves. I'm cold. I get on the airplane and we fly into Los Angeles. And I get off that plane and the first question to my mind is, what is this? It's like 75 degrees. And I have to take, my pea coat off.
You're sweating like a hostage in your pea coat.
So I knew my orders were to go to this place, but I have to tell you, I didn't know how to pronounce it. So I go to the old Greyhound bus station in downtown LA, and I go up to the desk to get a ticket, and I said, I need a ticket to go to Port Hueneme. And then they finally figured out what I was talking about, and I got the ticket and got on the bus and went up the freeway and got to Port Hueneme, and I said, this is pretty good. It just doesn't snow here. It doesn't get cold here. And it turned out that I became a Californian. That's what happened. So,
how old were you at that point?
I was 19, and I was about ready to turn 20.
That's when I came out to California, and I never went back. I'm from, Massachusetts.
That's right. Okay.
Let me tell you, it's really, 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 really cold in the winter, like you said, with the wind chill factor. Like literally, I'd walk to school with frozen ice chips on my face and shoveling snow just to get your car out of the driveway. Oh, yeah. And the mosquitoes eat me alive. And when I came out here and I was like, what? This weather? It's never cold? Yeah, I'm never leaving.
Well, on that same track, I remember I was in the 5th grade in Cleveland. I was walking home, and it was cold, and it was, the wind was blowing. It was just cold. I really thought that I was going to get stuck because I couldn't walk in the wind anymore. And they would not find me until the snow thawed out like 3 or 4 months later. So I had those memories as well.
Yeah.
But getting back to California, so I came out, and
you're 19. You're like, this is the greatest place on earth.
And I got assigned to what is called Mobile Construction Battalion 9, MCB 9.
Okay.
And we...
and what do they have you doing? Like heavy machine operating?
Well, I had already gone to school. They had me drive the captain around. Okay.
Oh.
So I was the captain's driver for a while. But...
like on a golf cart or what?
No.
In
a car. In a car. So, but we started training to go to Vietnam. The battalion had already done a tour. Now they're coming back. They're going on another tour. And we were scheduled to leave in September, October. And part of the training that you do is you go down to Camp Pendleton. And when you go down to Camp Pendleton, you went through military training. You slept in foxholes. You had M14s, which were the old weapons that they used in combat. It had at that time been replaced by the M16, which are commonly called now the AR-15s. But you had M14s. You had a device that was on the barrel that was called a BFA, a blank firing apparatus. And you played war games.
Okay, I just want to to impart this on our listeners too, because as you're sitting here, obviously you're a more sophisticated man than you were back when you were 19. But like, so you're talking about these weapons, but you were 19 years old.
I was 19 years old.
19. I think when I think about my son who's 20 now, and like that was a year ago, for him to be 19 and be like, oh, here are some AR, 15s and
Right.
all these other weapons of destruction that you're talking about, and like you're out in the woods playing war games with all your new buddies. That's kind of frightening to me.
But you're 19 and I had just turned 20. You're fearless at that time.
That's the problem. You don't realize like this is really dangerous.
But you're just you're doing it. You're just doing it. And to be honest with you, I volunteered to go to the Seabees knowing that the Seabees were going to Vietnam. All right. So I want to put that right out there.
That's really bold and courageous of you at that young age.
A lot had to do, and I'm glad you brought this up. My father was in World War II. I mean, my father and I had a relationship, so I knew about his service in World War II. My grandfather fought in World War I. He was under Pershing in the European theater in World War I. About 15 years ago, a third cousin who I've never met did a family tree and put it on the internet about my great-great-grandfather. And so I knew about my father, World War II. I knew about my grandfather, World War I. I did not know that my grandfather's father was a career Army, all right? And I did not know that my great-great-grandfather's father, his name was Ephraim King, and he was born in 1840 in Virginia, but the western part. And when the Civil War occurred, the western part of Virginia broke off and became West Virginia. And he fought for the Union in the Civil War.
Wow.
Okay,
So you got military blood in your veins. I mean, it sounds like your whole family.
It
to some degree.
But I did not know about my great grandfather and my great father, but I obviously knew about my grandfather and about my father. So what was going on in the 50s? The movies that were being produced in World War II, the Hollywood movies, The Fighting Seabees, Back to Bataan, The Sands of Iwo Jima, Guadalcanal Diary, Wake Island. I mean, I can name them. These were all movies that were produced by either RKO or the Republican movies or Republic movies, and they were being shown on TV. Now, getting back, I told you I didn't study too much. Watched a lot of TV. Watched the Mickey Mouse Club, watched Spin and Marty, okay, and watched all of the World War II movies. Before I went in, big movies that you would go to in theaters, The Great Escape, The Longest Day. They were for entertainment value, but they were for dramatic, and it never questioned our involvement in World War II because it was good versus evil. And so to me, perhaps by osmosis, whatever, it was my time. That's what I'm trying to convey. When I turned 18, even though I was in a trailer and it was a 10-second decision, 5-second decision, I think it was actually less than that, it was in me. It was going to happen. It wasn't a question of if, It was truly a question of when. And although the draft was there, that wasn't a part of my calculus to join. It was my feelings as an 18-year-old to serve my country.
Well, God bless you for being willing to do it, and every other young man out there who makes that decision, because it is a scary decision. I think. I know it comes easy to men and everything, but like, I just wouldn't want to be treated the way they treat you in boot camp, for starters. But especially when there's a war going on, to know that you might not come home to your family and friends. But, it takes people who are willing to sacrifice their life for their fellow man and for the greater good and for our country. And,
well, thank you for that.
And I mean that sincerely. I think it's very honorable and noble. Even if people don't end up going to war, which I certainly want to hear all the stories behind that too, but I still think it's honorable that you were willing, because you never know. At any moment, we could be at war.
But I didn't think that. I mean, and I do. I appreciate those. Those are very nice thoughts. But I was 20 years old. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was just, in my mind, my destiny.
Yeah. And do you think that maybe your the whole thing you were talking about, like college and being able to get the deferment, that your economic status at that time played a huge part in the decision?
I could make that argument, because there was no way I was going to get a student deferment. I mean, I tried, but I never went. The draft board knows when you don't go. Okay, so, but I want to make it clear, it wasn't because of the draft that I enlisted. I enlisted because it was, at that time, in my mind, what was required of me.
Okay.
All right. So getting back to Camp Pendleton.
Yeah.
So we were doing that, and I met, and this will be, I'll connect this when we get further down the line on this very nice occasion. You meet people from all over the country. You just do. And they're your age.
That's what I was going to ask you, is the demographics of the people that you're playing war games with. Same age-ish?
Same age.
And from all walks of life.
All walks of life. So they put me in, remember I told you how it's broken down, battalions, companies, platoons, squads, fire teams. And in the fire team, you have 4. You got the fire team leader, the automatic rifleman, R1, R2. Now, I don't know if I was the R1 or R2. I know I wasn't the fire team leader at that point.
But you were on the fire team.
I was on the fire team.
Okay.
With a
fire meaning shoot guns, not put out fires.
Yeah, no, you're
okay.
You shoot.
Okay.
With a fire team.
Gotcha.
And the person who was with me in the foxhole was a young man my age. His name was Harry Hodges. And he was from Tennessee. We were so different. We were just so different. And I want to emphasize this. I embraced California. I mean, when I got out here, I was going to the beach. I would find my way down to Santa Monica, Venice. They had a place called the Cheetah Club. And I went in there to see bands play. I mean, I embraced California. Harry hated California. He couldn't wait to get back to Tennessee. And his passion was 2 things. One, his high school sweetheart that he was engaged to, and driving a Peterbilt semi-tractor big rig. We were just opposites, but we're stuck together. All right? We're just stuck together.
Did you have a girl at that time?
No.
Okay.
So, and then we came back from military training, and we had about a month maybe before we got sent to Vietnam. And I would see Harry, and I said, "You still going back?" And I probably don't recall the kind of language I used, but I'm sure it was colorful, for lack of a better word. And he said, "You still going to hang out here in California?" And he had his own opinion of people in California, and I had my own opinion of where he was going. Okay, so we banter like that. And as I'll get to in a moment, we arrived in Vietnam, and we were on different construction projects, but we would pass each other, and we would say the same thing, okay? So keep Harry in your mind.
Okay.
So it was middle of September, last part of September. We knew we were leaving. And what the Seabees did, unlike other branches of the service in Vietnam, the Seabees would go over at a battalion at a time, and they would relieve a battalion that was there. So it was a unit of about 800 people. That was the size of a battalion, to then relieve another battalion of similar size. And the reason for that was to maintain the continuity in the construction projects. Whereas the Marines, the Army, the Air Force, you went over individually and you did 12 months unless you re-upped. And then you came back. You didn't go combat unit at a time. So why that is significant as I reflect back is because I got to know people, and I was with them, and I did 2 tours in Vietnam. I did 2 tours that totaled between 16 to 18 months. And I developed...
Each tour, or you said total? So it's a 9-month deployment?
It was 8 to 9 months, and so I did somewhere between total 16 to 18.
Okay.
All right? And I developed... it's like going to college. I'm with people, and you're in a combat zone, and and we're back here in the States, and I have 4 to 5, and we meet, we still stay in contact.
Wow.
And I just want to emphasize, if I may, about knowing and developing a friendship when you're in combat. Whatever organization you belong to, whether it's the DA's office, the public defender's office, the Superior Court, judges, you as humans tend to hang out with people who you like, and you probably don't hang out with people who you don't like. And that's no different. It's no different when you're in a combat zone. But the bond that you create with the people who you like develops at a much faster rate than, let's say, your neighborhood kids when they become friends. Mm-hmm. And there's, a movie, we all know what it is, A Few Good Men, and it's Tom Cruise cross-examining Colonel Jessup, and that sign, or that where, not the sign, but when he was cross-examining him, and Tom Cruise says, "You want the truth," and he says, "You can't handle the truth." Remember that? Well, before that, there was a line that, to me, when I first saw the movie, really struck. And that's when Colonel Jessup says, "Son, have you ever been in a situation where another man's life is in your hands?" And of course, Tom Cruise says no. And Tom Cruise had that one little ribbon, okay? He was a second lieutenant. Mm-hmm. And Colonel Jessup, with all the medals. And then the next question is, have you ever been in a situation where another man has your life in his hands? And that, to me, captured the essence of how quick you bond to people in that kind of a situation. And so with that, we get to Da Nang, and we fly over in military transports, and they're they're dark green, as I remember, flown by Air Force personnel. You're in jump seats. We stopped at either Guam or Wake Island, I can't recall. And then we flew into Vietnam. And then we flew into Da Nang. And I remember the first day I was in Vietnam. They opened the to go outside, and the humidity, it was
You're like,
amazing.
I'm melting. Was it really brutal hot?
It was hot. It was very, very hot.
Ugh.
So for the first 3 months I was in Da Nang, and Da Nang at that time, and we're talking in the fall of 1967, was very secure. It was so secure that we worked at night. We had a night crew. Now, can you even comprehend that we have a night crew in a combat zone doing construction projects with floodlights? I mean, it's like driving on the freeway and you see them working on the freeway at night.
Right.
That's what it's like. And that's how secure it was. But we worked from 6 at night until 6 in the morning. We worked 6 days a week. We'd have Sunday off. But at 6 o'clock in the morning, we get off work. And what do you do when you get off work? You go take a shower, you get cleaned up, and you go drink.
Right.
And that's what you did. And
where would you go drink?
Oh, they had like an entertainment center. It was called the Freedom Hill Exchange. And they had places to go where you can get cheeseburgers. Ate a lot of cheeseburgers, a lot of cherry Cokes, a lot of French fries. They had bowling alleys. They had where you can go in and buy items and you don't pay taxes. And one of the things about Vietnam that I so remember about what we all had, we remember those tape recorders that had the big reels, the big
Yes.
reels. You go buy those things for like $300. And everybody, at least the people who I hung out with, in our hooches, and we called them hooches.
Hooches?
Hooches.
Okay.
That is, the buildings that you lived in.
Like, is it like a tent?
Well, no, it's actually a building.
Okay.
But we called it
Like
hooches.
a barrack? But
a barracks. That's a good word for
But
it.
you called it hooches.
We called it hooches.
Okay.
You could walk in a hooch, and you better have earplugs because everybody is playing rock and roll music on their very expensive stereo equipment. And it was just so secure. And then they had movies. I remember seeing Cool Hand Luke.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like a movie theater where
a
you
movie
watch
theater. Go get popcorn. And so life was very safe. And I'm sure I had a thought that, well, this isn't too bad.
Right?
This is not too
You
bad.
got to do, go to war.
Yeah, this is.
Cool
And
Hand
then,
Luke and rock music isn't so bad.
Christmas. I went to the Bob Hope show. Me and 12,000 others on Freedom Hill. And Bob Hope comes in a helicopter. And I got there at my good buddy Herbie Schilling from Clare, Michigan. We developed that bond that I told you about.
Yeah.
Okay. We got there at like 4 or 5 in the morning and we just started drinking beer. And the helicopter arrives at about 4 in the afternoon, and I'll just never forget it.
Oh.
He comes in, he comes out with a golf club, has Raquel Welch. He has got, other people. It was Les Brown's Band of Renown playing. But the one thing that is just in my mind is that at the end, he had everybody stand. He took his golf cap off, and we all sang Silent Night together.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I that memory will always be with me.
Oh, I bet. And was it Christmas Eve?
It was Christmas.
Yeah, Christmas.
But it was. I actually found the tape on the internet, and I took a picture of him coming out. And I have to, as you recall in the
presentation,
I wanted to prove to all these lawyers and judges, that's what lawyers and
and former prosecutors do.
Yeah,
Let me give you the PowerPoint to prove it.
Yeah, I want to prove to you I was there. Okay, it's just not talk. So I actually took a picture of him coming out, and I tell everybody in the presentation, when you see the film that I got off the internet, take a look at his clothes, and it matched right up. It was as we call in the business, it was a positive ID.
That's called corroboration to your
Right.
story too, as
Right.
well.
But there were a couple of times that, it wasn't the easy life in Da Nang. I mean, you were scared. We would have the duty on occasion to go to this road that was just on the outside of Da Nang. And it was given the name Ambush Row. And there was 4 of us that had the duty. There were 2, one in a dump truck that had a lot of dirt with somebody riding shotgun, followed by a motor grader that has 4 huge wheels, and it has a blade on the bottom, and you can turn the blade to take dirt and to smooth it out. And so that was the duty. And when you entered this road, they called it Ambush Row. And the heading was lock and load, which means you put a chamber in the round.
The round in the chamber.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I get my, yeah,
So-
it's reminiscent of where I what my class ranking was in high school. Okay, so anyway, you put a round in the chamber. Did I get it right?
You got it right.
Okay, and it said lock and load, last ambush, and then there was a chalk there, and it would say 2 hours ago, 4 hours ago, 6 hours ago.
Oh no.
So when you entered Ambush Row, it was much different than going to get a cheeseburger.
Yeah, or see Raquel Welch at the Christmas show, right?
So
Were you scared?
the duty was the minesweepers would come out at about 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, and they'd go and find the mines in the road, and they'd blow them up, and there were big holes. And our job
Just fill the holes.
was to fill the holes. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. And then, you had to be off the road. I mean, you had to stop by 5 o'clock because they want the road closed, because there was this sort of an arrangement that the enemy would, when it's dark, they're going to put the mines in the road. All right. But we had to be off the road. The Seabees had to be off the road. And when I say an arrangement, I say that as somewhat as a joke, perhaps, because there was no agreement.
There wasn't a real agreement.
No.
Like, you put the mines in, we'll take them out, then
Yeah,
you put them
that's
back
right.
in.
That's right. That's what I...
But it was the pattern and practice that once you filled the holes back up, the enemy was just going to come put more.
But we had to quit. And we always quit at about a half an hour before the real quitting time, because like what we did in Da Nang, we brought our own beer. So when we were done, we would have a can of beer. And I have a picture of myself with a can of Budweiser, smoking a cigarette, with my good friend Herbie Schilling on my side. And that was on Ambush Row.
Oh, no way.
The other story is about Harry Hodges. And I told you I'd see Harry, and, you're going to stay in California. You're going to go back to Tennessee. And our battalion, a detail of the battalion, was putting and building a helicopter maintenance shed. And I can't remember. I think it was by China Beach or Red Beach. It was close to the ocean there in Da Nang. And we would provide our own security. And the security was in a bunker. And you would have 2 people in the bunker. And the watch was like 4 hours. So you're there for 4 hours, and then you're relieved. All right?
Okay.
So Harry had the watch. He had the 2-hour watch. And at about 2 o'clock in the morning, unbeknownst to him, an enemy snuck up and threw a grenade into the bunker. And I am sure in your career, because I've heard it, where people say, you know, I got your back, you know, I'm with you, I have your back. You know, we use that as a metaphor. Mm-hmm. What Harry did was no metaphor. He immediately grabbed the grenade, turned around so that his comrade there would not get the brunt of the blast, and tried to throw it out, and it went off. And he was killed instantly.
Oh, true war hero. Wow. Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. So he was the first person who I knew.
How old were you? Are you still 19?
He was 20.
He was 20. Were you 20 then?
Yeah, I was 20.
So you're 20 years old, and your first friend in Vietnam gets killed and blown up with a grenade.
He's one of my...
one of the first.
Well, it was just that I got to know him in sort of in an interesting way. We were so different. Mm-hmm. And he died to save his fellow Seabee. That I remember, and of course we heard of the facts and all of that. And I remember being 20 years old, that I said, this is real. This is real.
Yeah. And that was only just the beginning.
It was the beginning, but that has always been with me, and I sure will always be. Harry was posthumously awarded, or the recipient, we don't use the word award, the recipient of the Silver Star. And if you ever go to the Seabee Museum up in Port Hueneme, they have a little section about him.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay? Yeah. So, but getting back, Da Nang was pretty safe. It was very safe, except for those two incidences that I told you about. But everything changed on January 30th of 1968. And that was the beginning of the Tet Offensive.
And is this still your first deployment to Vietnam?
Yes. And I'm in Da Nang. And I, about 2 weeks before the Tet Offensive, I was placed in a detachment of 180 of the 800. There was going to be 180 of us that would go north of Da Nang to a place that was about 20 miles south of the imperial city of Vietnam called Hue, H-U-E. It was the ancient capital, and our mission, the reason we were going to go there, is that, and this is what I've learned afterwards in terms of the highway that we were to widen. It was Highway 1, and Highway 1 was really the main convoy route to go from Da Nang up to the demilitarized zone. And it was mostly dirt. And convoys were going up there. Convoys were having a hard time because the road was so narrow and was being mined all the time. So a decision was made to widen it, and the Seabees were going to widen it. And so they had a unit in Da Nang that was going to, they already had a quarry crusher there in Da Nang. And why a quarry crusher is needed is you got to blast rock and made the rock into road rock, which is the foundation for the asphalt to widen the road. So a quarry crusher is needed to widen a road. So they already had that in Da Nang, and they had one up further north, but they needed one halfway in between. And so there were 180 of us that were assigned to do that. and we called it, they called the detachment Detail Echo. We were going to fly out in two different groups, and I was in the second group. And I was scheduled to fly out the day of the Tet Offensive. You ask what the Tet Offensive was. It was a turning point that I have read since about the Vietnam War in terms of the public's attitude about the Vietnam War. Up until that time, again, this is what I have read. I didn't know any of this while I was there, that the public, by and large, did support our involvement in Vietnam. But the Tet Offensive was the beginning of a substantial amount of individuals of our country questioning, why are we there? And what's the end result? And so what happened was there was a coordinated attack by the Viet Cong, which is the National Liberation Front. They were primarily the enemy forces that were in the South. And the enemy forces from the North, which was the North Vietnamese Army called the NVA. So when you read and how we talked, was VC NVA. So this was a combined assault of NVA, Viet Cong, VC forces on all of the major cities in South Vietnam, which included Hue, the city I mentioned, Da Nang, the city that I was in, Saigon, which was the biggest city in South Vietnam at the time. And it lasted for about 28 or 30 days. For an example, in Saigon, they actually breached the United States Embassy and were in the embassy. And up in the Battle of Hue, which was the deadliest battle during the Tet Offensive, primarily fought by the Marines, the North Vietnamese Viet Cong forces overtook the city. And so it was a major, major battle that lasted for about a month. As you read about it now militarily, it was a devastating defeat for the enemy. I mean, their casualties were much more than the casualties of the United States and the South Vietnamese Army. But the political ramifications of it was impactful. You had Walter Cronkite, who they call the most trusted man in America, going on national television and saying, we need to rethink this. Is this just a war of attrition? So it was a major, major battle. And so when it occurred, I didn't get that flight to go from Da Nang up to a place called Phu Bai, which was right close to where we were going to construct and develop this quarry crusher operation. Instead, I went back to the camp, that really, really safe camp that up the road I went and saw the Bob Hope show. They put me up in a hill with a squad of Marines overlooking a place called Happy Valley because we were told we got to be up there in case the enemy is coming in. So I spent 5 nights with the Marines in these trenches, and at daytime we came back to our camp, but at night I was out there. And I got a picture of myself, which, I mean, you can see I'm just full of dirt and I'm loaded up, so to speak. But Tet started to diminish. We were able to get the second group, was able to get the flight. And we flew from Da Nang to Phu Bai. And we were met by the first group that was there. And there was a World War II vet who was a Seabee. I mean, we called him Pappy. Pappy Scott was his name. And I mean, he, to me, was ancient. And he was like 46, 47. He was just like ancient. But he had a shotgun. I mean, he had rounds of ammunition, wrapped around him. And I'll never forget his words. He says, "This ain't no effing Da Nang. Lock and load, get into the transports," which were, trucks. And we're going convoy. And there's fighting all around.
Oh my goodness.
Because the Tet Offensive is still going on. So when I told you about Harry Hodges as being the first person that I knew, he was. But I really didn't see any effect of combat until then. Because we were in this convoy for maybe 5-10 minutes, and all of a sudden, small arms fire. We jumped out, we get to the side, and it was quick. It couldn't have been more than 30 seconds to a minute, which in Vietnam, when there was a firefight, that was the typical length of time. It wasn't land battles. Now, when camps got rocketed in mortars, they were a little bit longer. But firefights, ambushes, things like that, they were quick.
Interesting.
And so we're there, and the shooting stops, and we get back in. And I'll never forget this image. We're driving by, and there was a little girl that had a bullet hole in her head, and who I thought was her mom was just emotionally at that point.
Wailing, I'm sure.
And that then I knew, as Pappy said, this ain't no Da Nang. So we got to our camp, and for the first month, it rained. It was the monsoon season.
Oh my gosh.
Now this camp, where we were, it was a hill called Hill 494, and we were below Hill 494, and then there was a bay about maybe a half a mile away that was, the water. It was a bay with a beach, and we used that beach to fill our sandbags. But we lived in tents, and we couldn't build our hooches. And of course, Seabees, we do our own building, we do our own showers. Okay, we cook our own steaks. All right, all that. We couldn't do any of that because of the rain. All we could do is just strip the vegetation and lay barbed wire, concertina wire, in the mud. And if you want to talk about something that is just not fun, is to try to establish a perimeter with concertina wire in the mud. You slip, you get tangled up, you get cut, okay? I mean, and you're sleeping in tents, and it's just raining all the time. And there were battles going on the north, there was battles going on the south, and we were cut off. And so we just had our supplies. And we had a few bulldozers, small ones, that we were able to remove the vegetation, but it just rained. It rained. And my duties, my role there, I was going to do two things. I was going to operate a power shovel in the quarry. So once we blasted the rock, I would go in with this crane that had a bucket, and it would scoop up the blasted rock and put it into a dump truck. And that dump truck would take it down to the crusher and dump it into the hopper, and the crusher would grind it into road rock. I mean, that's what it was. That's the operation, what I just described to you. Wow. All right? Mm-hmm. Well, I was also the blaster. Me and another individual, they sent me to blasting school. So I had C4. C4 is, it's not dynamite, but you can put it on something, put a fuse on it, and it'll explode. Well, I had bricks of C4, and to keep myself dry, my tent in my hut, I had it propped up with C4. Okay, because I knew that if it got shot, it's not going to explode. It needed a fuse. But just to give you, that was our conditions.
Okay.
In tents, in mud, laying concertina wire for the perimeter. And after a month, two very important things happen.
Were you hungry during all this?
You eat C rations. That's what you eat. You eat C rations.
Which is like what?
Well, they're cans, and you open them up and you eat them. You eat what's in there. The big one is beans and weenies. I mean, that was the most popular one.
Can you eat those to this day? Or
I have a hard time.
Yeah, I could see that.
All right. Then they would have maybe a can of fruit. Okay, yeah. Some cookies. And
you can still eat cookies, though, right?
I still eat cookies. And then they would have a package. It would have 2 or 3 cigarettes in it.
Okay.
And so they were giving you cigarettes, and everybody smoked.
Did they give you beer still too, or was?
Well, we had brought some beer, but we were sort of low on low supply because we're waiting, because we couldn't get supplies north, we couldn't get supplies south. But 2 significant things happened. It stopped raining.
Hallelujah.
And when it stopped raining and that sun came out, it didn't take long for that mud to become dirt.
Oh, yeah.
And the other thing that was significant was the Marines took back the city of Way. And it was on the Perfume River, which is where our heavy equipment on barges could come in. And we convoyed up to get our heavy equipment to now develop our camp and the quarry crusher operation. And then once that happened, we went into full operation. And during this time, we were attacked. We would have mortar rounds come in. We would have rockets come in. No fatalities, but people wounded.
Okay.
All right? But within 2 months, we were fully operational. We were producing over 800 tons of crushed rock a day that was used to widen the highway, which was our responsibility. Wow. And I don't know if you've seen, and I'm a little biased here, but the movie Bridge on the River Kwai, which is about a bridge being built in World War II. Well, again, that was one of the movies I always watched growing up. I consider what we did, that was Vietnam's Bridge on the River Kwai. I mean, under these incredible conditions, we were able to do what our assignment was. And it was people working together in the most adverse conditions. So when I tell you before about how you develop bonds, can you imagine becoming a friend with somebody under that condition? Now, there's people there I particularly didn't like. I didn't hang out with them. But something would happen when you come under attack. And that is, even the people who you don't like, we all had a common goal, and that is to defend ourselves.
Yeah. So
this is what I'm going through as a 20-year-old. And it was, it has, I hope I can demonstrate, has left a lasting memory for me.
Yeah, I'll say. And your war story does not end there.
No.
But I do think for this episode, we're out of time. So if you want to hear what happens and how this war turns out with now Judge King, but 20-year-old Rick King in the military in Vietnam, just trying to survive under these devastating conditions, you got to tune into the next episode where we hear what happens, how he manages to survive to be here today to talk about it, and all of the amazing things he did 50 years after that battle. When we return Until then, if you can't find the light, be the light, like Judge Rick King over in Vietnam, who is our veteran hero for the day that we're honoring in honor of Veterans Day. And I hope you guys are enjoying this story as much as I am. Tune into the next episode. Until then, we'll see you. So long now.
Be the light, shine so bright, turn the